talking to youth, going to assemblies and stuff like that. Why did you decide that that was such an important part of your second phase of your life?
Yeah, so I'm going to take you back to the trail for a lesson here because I think that that sort of sets the stage for how I ultimately made that decision. I had mentioned earlier about breaking the trail out into essentially three parts around courage, gratitude, kindness. That kindness part is where I share stories of trail angels. So, a trail angel is a complete stranger who performs a random act of kindness for a hiker to help them along in their journey. They want nothing at all in return. They just want to help somebody take the next step, whether they're having a good day, a bad day. And also, it doesn't matter where they came from, what their beliefs are, politically, religion, it doesn't matter. They just choose to be kind to everybody. And that is a trail angel. Absolutely beautiful people. I had so many encounters with trail angels all the way from Georgia to Maine. I like to say that I went out to hike that trail alone, but I was hardly ever alone. And I think that it is very much something to think about when we think about not just the trail, but also our life journey is that there are always people willing to help. Nobody, to the point we were just making, nobody has to feel like they have to do this on their own. And if you're struggling, there's always someone that is willing to lend a hand and help. And these are trail angels. So I share a few stories of specific trail angels that I encountered along the way. And, by the end of the trail, I did reach the top of Mount Katahdin, which is the northern terminus of the AT in Maine. And I honestly don't know if I ever would have arrived in that place without all of the help that I did receive from trail angels. So there was sort of this almost like an awakening to the power of kindness. Now, I know like this sounds like super basic. Like when we're kids, I have a 2.5-year-old and I read books about kindness to him all the time. Like we are told from a very early age to be kind. Of course. But somewhere along the way, like, as we, like, grow into adults, like, I don't know. I don't know about you, but I did. I sort of lost sight of making that a priority, right? Like, I was so wrapped up in all of the things I was doing, whether they were good or bad or in line with my values or not. I was just so wrapped up that I was never actually going out of my way to be of service to someone else in some way. So I know it sounds basic, but having those encounters with trail angels really opened my eyes to how powerful kindness can be in terms of changing the trajectory of someone's journey in such a positive way. So when I finish that trail, and I'm getting to your question now, when I finish that trail, I simply ask myself, how can I be a trail angel for other people off of the trail? And there's a lot of ways, obviously. Publishing my book is one way. That's one way to reach the masses and share these very important lessons that I did learn along that journey, pre-trail, during trail, and post-trail. But one thing that I kept on coming back to, and this definitely ties into what we were talking about earlier with social media, but the one thing I keep on coming back to is the state of youth mental health. And to me, it even thinking about it and talking about it literally brings me to tears. So if I start crying right now, Nick, it's okay. Just let it happen. But the state of youth mental health is so incredibly sad. And these are kids that are living in a world where they don't know anything other than social media. They have it essentially in their pocket from a very early age, which is very different than how I grew up. So when I talk to groups of kids, I admit to them, I say, listen, I cannot pretend to know what it is like being you at your age in this world today. I simply cannot pretend to know that because the world is so incredibly different. But where I can relate to you is how I was feeling a few years ago when my mental health was deteriorating, when I felt completely stuck, when I felt like I felt completely lost and I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how to cope with all of that. That is where I can relate to what a lot of you are feeling right now. If I'm in a room with, say, 300 students, almost half of them are dealing with some mental health issue. Now that's crazy. That's crazy to think. And it's, like I said, it's so sad to think that so many kids are dealing with this. And I do think that they need to be approached with more empathy because these problems that they are facing are problems that we as adults have created. We've created this world for them to grow up in. So I do think we need to approach them with more empathy and get on their page and just talk to them honestly about strategies and ways of improving their mental health. And I wholeheartedly believe that mindfulness and being present is a huge part of that. And also getting outside in nature. So there's the whole adventure part that comes into play. I didn't cry.
You did well. You held it together. So
But
what are some of
yeah.
those tips that you give kids or parents listening of how to best live in this world that is, to your point, just filled with distraction, filled with ways of comparing to, again, the 1% rather than the 99 other kids in your classroom?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that we have a long way to go in terms of educating kids on what they actually are seeing on social media, right? And not taking it as so seriously, right? Like what you are seeing is their highlight reel. That is not what their life as a whole looks like. But also really talking to them about the importance of disconnecting. And I like to say disconnect to reconnect. I use a great quote from from Winnie the Pooh. And
The
you
wise
know,
philosopher.
yeah, Winnie the Pooh is awesome. But doing nothing often results in the very best of something. Um, we have a really hard time doing nothing. There's actually a Chinese word for it, wu wei, Wuwei. Wu wei in the Chinese language stands for doing nothing. And Winnie the Pooh is actually based on Taoism, so there's the tie to Chinese culture, all of
Oh, really? I
Anyway,
didn't know that.
yeah. There's a book called The Tao of Pooh.
We're gonna have to look
Great
that up.
wisdom in it. Really great wisdom. That's a good one. Anyway, we live in a world where we feel if we are doing nothing, we are not being productive. But the reason why that quote is so powerful is that doing nothing, like we are doing so much more for ourselves, especially for our mental health. So we are actually being so much more productive when we are doing nothing. So I do think that there's definitely a bit of education in terms of taking time to disconnect and connect with yourself and the world around you in different ways. Whether that is sitting in meditation, whether that is just taking a few nice, deep, conscious breaths, going outside, right? The latest statistic is that we're spending 92% of our lives indoors here in the United States.
Crazy.
Technology has moved us inside. It's just a fact at this point. So educating them on the importance of getting outside. The way I talk to kids about the outdoors is I talk about its relationship to mindfulness, that essentially being outside in nature is a way of practicing mindfulness, of being mindful. Because when we are out there, I call it the playground for our senses. We can pay attention to the things that we are seeing. We could pay attention to the things that we are hearing, the things that we are smelling. And those are just ways of grounding yourself in the present moment, is just bringing your attention to those things. It's no different than in a typical mindfulness meditation, focusing on your breath. You're just providing an anchor for your attention, right? So educating them on different ways of practicing mindfulness, because it is something that needs to be practiced, because we are in this world now, we are essentially wired to consume information, scroll, like, comment, right? Like it is just coming at us on all cylinders. So practice, and through that practice, we essentially can, and this is grounded in science, we can rewire the way our brains operate. It's called neuroplasticity. And we can help ourselves to just be more present in our lives with the people that we're with through a consistent practice.